Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा राधा माता जी दंडवत प्रणाम शिला प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय दिस इज श्याम गौरी देवी दासी फ्रॉम शार्लेट
Hare Krishna, Syamagauri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा
Hare Krishna, Radha Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devi Dasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. This is Radharani Devi Dasi from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna, Radharani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj and all the assembled devotees. This is Dinabandhu Guru Das and Lalita Devi Dasi from Sandy Ridge. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dinabandhu Prabhuji and Lalita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji and Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to assembled devotees. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Mataji, all glories to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj is my humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devi Dasi from Ram.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. This is Shobha Radhe Devi Dasi from Fredericton, Canada.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Gurudev and the assembled devotees. This is Shiromani Nandarani from Krishna Kathadesh. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Radha Damodar Das and Radha Maya from Austin, Texas. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Damodar Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Is there anybody else would like to introduce themselves?
Shamagauri Mataji, I don't see Jayasri Mataji on the call.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay, Mataji.
Friend name.
I'm Radha Vrindavan Chandra picture.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me put a camera on, I guess. There we go.
Mataji, shall we start the recording, Mataji?
Yeah, it's started, Mataji.
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji.
Did my
Hare
camera go on?
Krishna, welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are fortunate to have Her Grace Jayasri Devi Mataji. Mataji to enlightening us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, 2nd chapter, first verse onwards. First, I would like to hand over call to Praveen Govind Prabhuji for reading brief introduction about Mataji. Hare Krishna, Praveen Govind Prabhuji, please take over the call.
Hare Krishna. My Dandavat Pranams to all the devotees on the call. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Her Grace Jayasri Mataji is the disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She met him in 1969 in Hawaii when she was barely 20 years old. She received her second initiation from Srila Prabhupada in October 1974. She is fondly remembered by all for being the one who stitched a saffron coat for Srila Prabhupada, which was worn lovingly by Srila Prabhupada for many, many years. Her Grace Jayasri Mataji later moved to New Vrindavan and served the deities there, though she travels to other places as part of her multiple devotional services, but her main core services still rests in New Vrindavan. Vaishnavas are always para dukha dukhi, thus very compassionate and kind at heart. We see the quality so prominent in Mataji. In the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, she has painstakingly stitched face masks for all age groups so the devotees can continue with uninterrupted service to Krishna. So I hand over the call to Mataji. My Dandavat Pranams, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Praveen Govind Prabhuji, for reading introduction about Mataji. Hare Krishna, Jayasri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for giving your valuable time and association to us this morning and enlightening on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now I would like to hand over call to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. That's always a big introduction for me. I'm actually pretty insignificant in Krishna consciousness, but the introduction makes me sound a little big or worthwhile. So we will start with Jai Radha Madhava. Please forgive my old cracking voice. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janabala Shrivaradari Yasuranandana Vedadana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajakacharya Sritara Satis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajakacharya Sritara Satis Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Karita Vaishnavini Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sri Guru Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Granga. All glories to Sri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are so fortunate. We are reading from the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2, text number 1. Shamagori, please.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you.
Shri Shuka एवं पितरि संप्रवृत्ते तदनुशासने वर्तमान अग्निक्यो दीपोकसः प्रजा औरसवर्धर्मा वेक्षमाणः पर्यगोपायत्.
Thank you. I'm hoping that some lifetime I will learn Sanskrit enough to be confident. Synonyms: Sri Sukadev Goswami, Uvacha, said, Evam, thus, Pitari, when his father, Swayam Pravit, took him to the path of liberation, Tat Asena, according to his order, Vardmanaha, situated, Agni Dira, king Ag and Adnidra, Jambadweep Uksha, the inhabitants of Jambadweep, Praja, citizens, Arusat, as if they were his sons. Sorry, I can't see very well. Dharma, religious principles, Avekshanaha, strictly observing, Parvyat, completely protected. Translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami continued. After his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities, King Adnitra completely obeyed his father, strictly observed the principles of religion, and gave full protection to all of the inhabitants of Jambadweep, as if they were his own begotten sons. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to the instructions of his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, Maharaj Andira ruled the inhabitants of Jambadweep according to religious principles. These principles are exactly contrary to the modern principles of faithlessness. As clearly stated here, the king protected the citizens the way a father protects his begotten children. How he ruled the citizens is also described here. Dharma Vekshamanaha, strictly according to the religious principles. It is the duty of the executive head of the state to see that the citizens strictly follow the religious principles. The Vedic religious principles begin with Varnashram Dharma, the duties of the 4 Varnas and the 4 ashrams. Dharma refers to principles given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first principle of Dharma or religion is to observe the duties of the 4 orders as enjoined by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to people's qualities and activities, society should be divided into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. And then again, also Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis. These are religious principles, and it is the duty of the head of state to see that his citizens strictly follow them. He should not merely act officially. He should be like a father who is always a well-wisher of his sons. Such a father strictly observes whether his sons are performing their duties, and sometimes he also punishes them. Just contrary to the principles mentioned here, the presidents and chief executives of the age of Kali are simply tax collectors who do not care whether religious principles are observed. Indeed, the chief executives of the present day introduce all kinds of sinful activities, especially illicit sex, intoxication, animal killing, and gambling. These sinful activities are now very prominently manifest in India. Although 100 years ago these 4 principles of sinful life were strictly prohibited in the families of India, they are now been introduced into every Indian family. Therefore, they cannot follow the religious principles. In contrast to the principles of the kings of old, the modern state is concerned only with propaganda for levying taxes and is no longer responsible for the spiritual welfare of the citizens. The state is now callous to religious principles. Srimad Bhagavatam predicts that in the age of Kali, the government will be entrusted with Dashu Dharma, which means the occupational duty of rogues and thieves. Modern heads of states are rogues and thieves who plunder the citizens instead of giving them protection. Rogues and thieves plunder without regard for law, but in the age of Kali, it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the lawmakers themselves plunder the citizens. The next prediction to be fulfilled, which is already coming to pass, is that because of sinful activities of the citizens and the government, rain will become increasingly scarce. Gradually, there will be complete drought and no production of food. People will be reduced to eating flesh and seeds, and many good spiritually inclined people will have to forsake their homes because they will be too harassed by drought, taxation, and famine. The Krishna consciousness movement is the only hope to save the world from such devastation. It is the most scientific and authorized movement for the actual welfare of the whole human society. So heavy. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sinivadi Pachati Deshtani. I just gave a class in New Vrindavan here the other day, and I actually read the benedictions in English along with the Sanskrit. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do that because I got so many comments that it was so wonderful. Om Agana Timirandasya Kananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. And then Sri Chaitanya Mano Vistyam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world a mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jata Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parijanasetam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanitam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and to the feet of the Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanat Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, and Sri Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaitacharya, Gadadhar Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopi Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. I offer, oh my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Sri Radha Vrindavani Sri Vrishabhanu Statute Pranamami Hari Priya. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are dear to Lord Krishna. Vanchakalpa Tribhasha Kripa Sindhu Vaibhacha Patitanam Pavanebhya Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gopakta-vrinda. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, and all in the line of devotion. I was giving this class the other day, and all of the great souls, like the verse that I was reading at that time was prayers by Sukadev Goswami before he started speaking. And there was like 10 prayers that he said, one after another, very deep and meaningful prayers. One of our processes of devotional service is praying, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, praying. And I find that myself, praying is not something that I know a lot about. But you see the prayers of these great devotees, and they're just on such a different level. They're not asking for anything. They're just offering respects and acknowledging the greatness of the Lord and the presence of the Lord and the activities of the Lord, and also praying to the other great saints of the past to please empower their words and give them benediction so that they may do devotional service and speak something about devotional service. Just such great souls. And all the songs, the bhajans that we sing are mostly prayers. They're prayers by Narottam Das Thakur, by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Just such closeness to the Supreme Lord. So it's such a benediction to have those prayers in our life. So the verse is quite significant for the age. Here we have Maharaj Priyavrata. He's gone on the path of devotional service, and he has left his son Angira in charge of the kingdom. And he's given him instructions to be a good king and to follow the path of religion. And unfortunately, the time and place we live in is just so opposite of anything to do with religious principles. The leaders of the world are so generally so far away from being a spiritually minded leader. Some of them have some piety, they have some religious sentiment, and that's so much better than some of the other ones who are fakers and cheaters and outright liars, and and the fact that they can get into power by vote is extraordinary. That the people of the world would see them as anything but fools and rascals. Like Prabhupada used to be quite heavy. Fools, rascals, mudhas, duskritinas. You know, he was very bold in his way of calling out the actual position of some of these personalities. So we see that they're not only addicted themselves to these 4 pillars of sinful activities: illicit sex life, gambling, intoxication, meat eating. They not only participate in those activities, but they promote them as if this is the way a king or a leader is supposed to lead his subjects. Most of them don't take it that they're actually leading people. Their ego is so much manifest in the mode of ignorance and passion that they're basically just looking for adoration, distinction and adoration, that they are somebody great. And so they think what they say and what they do is supposed to just be there for the sake of fame and adoration. They don't realize that their example is actually looked up to by so many in society. And because so many of them are such fools and rascals, anyone with any sense doesn't look to them at all for leadership. For me personally, for the last 4 years, if I see the face of a certain person, I just have to get rid of it. I don't even want to see that person because I know what they stand for. I know what they've been promoting in the society. And then we have the examples, the great kings of the past. We have Ramachandra. He was the ideal king. He cared so much about his citizens, and we see that he would travel incognito in his land to see what was actually going on, to see what the people were facing, to see their challenges and the situation, and to see what he could do about it. And he was so responsible that the citizens actually held him responsible for the weather, the diseases that were in the kingdom. When I met Srila Prabhupada, he told me the story of Lord Ramachandra, just a small tidbit. And he said that the king was so responsible to actually take care of the whole situation under his rule. And one time there was a citizen that came to Lord Ramachandra and he was very distraught. His son had died before him, and he actually held the king responsible. And Prabhupada was saying that so the responsibility of a leader is that their example and what they're doing to govern should be so pure and so helpful for the citizens that there's no lack of food, there's no lack of shelter, there's no lack of employment. This is a king, and that the rogues and thieves and plunderers of society are stopped and punished, for their good, not just to do it, to be the big bad authoritative ruler, but actually for the benefit of the society and for the protection of the person. To punish, like Prabhupada tells the story of the young boy who was raised by his aunt, and his aunt let him do anything. So he thought just doing anything was okay. And then he did a heinous crime and was put in prison and was going to be killed. And the aunt came to see him, and he asked her to come close. And when she came close, he bit off her ear. And she said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Because you did not teach me right from wrong. You let me do anything I want. And so I never learned. And so you're responsible for my activities because you didn't teach me. So the king is, he's responsible that the education is good, that the medical is good, that the activities of the citizens don't promote bad weather. And the accumulated sinful reactions that we see now are just like overwhelming. It's like we sit back and go, oh my God, well, look at the place, the time that we're in. In the summer, there's fires, there's storms. This is the worst winter in New Vrindavan that we've had in like 10 years. Just my luck, I stayed here this year. But, the weather, the catastrophes, the earthquakes, the floods, it's just like, why? What's collective karma? The rulers are promoting sinful activities. The citizens are thinking, oh, joy, what a party. Yeah, we can do anything. We can drink anything. We can rape the earth. We can kill the animals. We can cut down all the trees. Oh, it's okay. Our leader says it's okay. It's what he does. No, that is just so far from, Prabhupada himself was so thoughtful. When I was initiated, I sent him my beads in this little box with a paper bag. I took a paper bag and cut it because we had no money. We couldn't go buy paper. And I cut it and I wrapped it and taped it onto the box and I wrote his address. And he sent me back my beads in the same box with the same paper, turned inside out with my address on it. I was like, yeah, that made so much sense to me. Instead of using the resources that we have, darning our socks, fixing our shoes, where's the shoe repair guy now? Oh, no, we don't need him. We just throw them away and we go buy some new ones. We collect all this money. We have a laundry room up here and people put their used stuff in it. And I went into it yesterday and there were 3 pairs of hardly worn, what are they called? Natural, anyway, those really good tennis shoes, men's tennis shoes. They're like $100 a pair. There were like 3 pairs in there. You can see they'd been worn, but you could tell they were worn only because they were a little dirty on the bottom. They weren't worn out at all. So someone had bought those, not to criticize whoever did that, just an example, had bought those and whatever reason, they didn't like them, they didn't like the color, they didn't fit as well as they wanted. They put those in there and got some new ones. It's like the disease of the society. We don't fix anything. We don't repair buttons and little rips. We get rid of it. We fill up the dump with it or the goodwill with it, and then we go and buy something new. It's like it's not a good status of society. So the earth becomes overburdened. We get rid of so many trees, making so much junk mail. It's just, but if the leaders were more thoughtful and can put these thoughts to the citizens, then things would change. It kind of comes down from the top. So, and then you have like Dhruva Maharaj. I remember reading that Dhruva Maharaj would exhaust his whole treasury. He'd exhaust his treasury for the citizens. He would build lakes, wells, parks, roads, plant trees, and make sure the citizens were taken care of. I don't remember reading that there was like hundreds and thousands of people on the street living under the overpasses with nothing, no water, no place to shower or evacuate. I don't remember reading that in his time. So he would exhaust the treasury for the citizens and then he would collect taxes. Like, yeah, that makes total sense. The king is the father of the society. The citizens are like his children. And that's what we see with King Indira. He was such a king. So he ruled things in such a way as to protect those that he was ruling. And Srila Prabhupada was like that too. Prabhupada was very attentive to the people that were working with him. And he wrote letters, probably thousands of letters. He wrote so many letters. If you wrote to Srila Prabhupada, he wrote back. If you asked a question, I mean, simple things, what medicine do I take? Or, they would ask him, he named their children. What do we do about this problem? What do we do about that problem? Prabhupada would write, when it was controllable, when there weren't so many, when the society was young, the devotees could go into his room and ask him personal questions, and you can read all the letters, they're so personal. Yes, Nandarani, you should do this. Yes, Ladini, you should do that. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, yes, do this and that. And, he guided these little group, like this little, you see a mother duck with their little ducklings, they're all like following behind. So Srila Prabhupada was leading his children. And so his endeavor was to build a society that would have that same care and that same consideration and that same protection for all the citizens, whether they're advanced or whether they're not advanced. Sometimes I think, okay, naturally we give all respect and protection, of course, to our spiritual leaders that are so advanced. But if we consider that so many other people are doing the same thing, and then we see some of the other members of our ISKCON society that are either single women or sick persons or, someone who's fallen down away from their strong following, sometimes to spend time with those people is also very pleasing to Krishna. To help one of his children in their life rather than, I'm just thinking for myself because I made some masks for Radhanath Swami and I was going to make them, but then I thought he's got so many disciples and so many people that care about it. He's probably got 500 masks, So I made masks for so many other people. But then I was on a conference call with him. It was actually a class he was giving. And he saw me and, of course, said hello. And at that point I asked him, Maharaj, do you need any masks? I said, I have some of your cloth, someone gave me his dhoti and the shirt. And so I have it. And I said, I have your cloth. I can make you a mask to match your clothes. So he said, okay. So I made him a few masks. But we want to focus on everybody, not just people we feel are going to give us a certain type of benediction. So the verse is great. The purport, Prabhupada gets really into it. He explains about the 4 orders of life and the 4 statuses of life. And he talks about how all of these sinful activities are pervading the world and how unfortunately they've gotten into India and are also a common occurrence in India, which is sad. And if, we see sometimes news from India about so many things that you don't want to hear about. And you would expect, when we first started, we always thought, oh, India, everyone is going to be a pure devotee. And it's like, and sadly, Prabhupada's preaching originally in India was very sparse. People didn't want to hear what he had to say. On the street with Back to Godhead magazines, please hear about the war, hear about this, hear about the soul. No, I have no time. No. So he couldn't get a foothold in India. So he followed the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta and came to the West. And his idea was everyone wants to follow the West. So I will take the devotees from the West to India. So he called them his dancing white elephants. And he went and he was able to get a foothold in India. Now we see so many beautiful projects there. It's quite amazing. It hasn't been all that long. Prabhupada has been gone for only so many years. And, you know, the society, his teachings, and even the society at large has changed so much because of Prabhupada's preaching and because of our preaching. We see all these movements of for the ecological protection of the world, vegan, vegetarian. You know, the vegan movement has its place. It's unfortunate that the reason they're not taking animal products like milk and such are because of the torture of the milking cows. You know, it's not that milk is bad. It's unfortunate they have that misconception. It's the place it's coming from. They call it blood milk. It's coming from such an unkind business that they don't want to participate in, and you can't really blame them. But if they could find a way, or if the devotees, it would be great business, actually. If the devotees like New Vrindavan, Gita Nagari, if we could find a way to produce milk, ahimsa milk, and make products from that and sell those, then many of the vegans would just take that ahimsa product, you know, because milk is so good for you. Not only is Krishna happy with milk products and protection of cows and people living with cows, but it's actually good for the mind, for the society, the overall protection of the world. So if we can go in that direction, I know the GBC is working on it. I was at a conference here where it was a farm and agriculture and cow protection. And they were talking about, I guess coming up, there's going to be some kind of rule that the deities in our movement can only be offered ahimsa milk products, which will be a good standard. And it will promote more thought into having cows that will provide ahimsa milk products to our society. That will be good. So today is also the appearance day of Sri Ramanujacharya. And I was looking in the database. I haven't ever seen a lot written about Ramanujacharya. So I'm going to read to you a few things that I did find. On a morning walk, Srila Prabhupada said, amongst the Vaishnavas, he was the greatest Acharya, Ramanujacharya. And to kill the Mayavadis, he was the ablest person. Ramanujacharya still in South India. The Mayavadis and the Ramanujas have their talks, and the Mayavadis are defeated always. And these are going to be little excerpts from a few different locations. And this one, I didn't write down, I'm sorry where I got it from. Sri Ramanuja is known as the greatest exponent of Vishishta Advaita, Vedanta, qualified monism. He appeared around 1017 AD, it's about 1,000 years ago, in a pious Brahmin family. His birthplace is a small village some 25 miles southwest of Madras, now Chennai. He became the foremost Acharya of the Sri Sampradaya and was reputed to be an incarnation of Sri Lakshman, the younger brother of Lord Ram. Anuja means to follow. So he was a follower of Ram Anuja. I thought that was interesting. Prabhupada said he came to break the teeth of impersonalism spread by Shankaracharya. Balaram entered into the womb of his mother and became Ramanuja. Ram Anuja means to follow in the footsteps of Ram or Lakshman. In his childhood, there were so many pastimes. He never discriminated anyone on the basis of birth. And we see that the caste system and like what Prabhupada was talking about, the forgotten the name. The 4 orders and 4 castes and all that. Those things are real. But when they're presented by someone who's pure, like Ramanujacharya, like Srila Prabhupada, we see it's done without any discrimination, no negative discrimination. It's not that one is higher, one is lower. It's that everybody has a certain propensity and is born in a certain way. And those orders of life or castes are natural, the natural propensity. So it's not that one is bad and one is good. But like Prabhupada talks about, in India, things have degraded. And I mean, in America, there's just like it's a big hodgepodge of nothing, no culture. But in India, there was some culture, but the culture sometimes becomes perverted and contaminated. And so personalities like Lord Chaitanya, when he came, he didn't discriminate against the low-born, the untouchables, which was very prominent at his time. So it also seems that Ramanujacharya had met, I believe through a dream, with Lord Chaitanya. And he took birth. It's said by Lord Gauranga's mercy, he was born again in Navadvip as a devotee named Ananta to assist the Lord in his pastimes. And like so many of the great acharyas and devotees, before he left his body, Ramanujacharya, he gave 74 final instructions, all about serving Vaishnavas. And you see in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he also, I got the quotes from Varshana Maharaj, the places, I don't have them in front of me, where Lord Chaitanya would go and wash the clothes of somebody, or bring them food, or clean up their yard, or, just menial service to the devotees. So Ramanuja, this was also his way. For instance, one should feed them nicely. These are things that Ramanuja wanted. These are things that he left with his disciples at the end of his life. You should feed devotees nice preparations to make them so happy they smile. One should massage their legs until they fall asleep. One should walk with them to the end of the village and then 9 steps beyond, and then faint due to intense separation at leaving the Vaishnavas. I mean, speaking for myself, I have such a long way to go. Just such depth of character. His main instructions were 2 in number: surrender to Guru and serve the Vaishnavas. Such an important part of life. And we have so much opportunity. ISKCON is just like a wealth. It's like the storehouse of mercy and opportunity to serve the devotees. We used to think years and years ago, that it just comes along with being a neophyte devotee. We used to call it PDS, Pure Devotee Syndrome. Someone becomes a devotee, especially from the place most people were at when they met Srila Prabhupada. And then you'd read and you would think, oh, yes, this Bhagavad Gita verse is pertaining to me. I certainly must be this and that. You thinking, well, I've become a devotee and now I must be so great. And so people, it's the tendency of the conditioned soul. We seek after position and fame and name. It just comes along with the turf of being conditioned. That adoration, distinction, it just comes along with the turf. But as one matures a little, we see that actually the menial service to the devotees is more important, certainly, than having a puffed up attitude and trying to become a leader because you want to lead, because you think you're so great. It's like we grow, and as we grow, our head touches the ground even more. That's the example. We're so fortunate to have these examples. The rest of the world is running after the football player, yeah, or the beauty queen, she's so whatever, sexy, it's like the examples that people have are just like, oh my God, how sad, But we have examples of personalities that are so different. That's one thing that about Srila Prabhupada when I met him. It was so easy to see that he was so different than anybody else I had ever met. He had a certain care for me, a certain love for me, and he didn't even know me, but I could feel it, I could sense it. I could, just that meeting with him, that first meeting with him, it was so obvious that what I was looking for was real. And here was a person that had what I was looking for. It was Krishna made it very apparent. So Ramanuja, there was so many stories. I've actually been listening all week to stories about Ramanujacharya from different, much more advanced devotees. And so I decided just to come up with one of the stories, which I thought was interesting. So this is about Ramanuja taking sannyas. There was a devotee, Kanchipurna, that was really a simple, humble devotee. He's somebody that was so connected with the deity. The deity's name was Vardaraj. And this devotee, Kanchipurna, would go and he would fan the deity, he would take care of it, he would talk to the deity, and the deity would talk to him. So this was the person that Ramanujacharya wanted to get initiated from. He really tried. He approached him for initiation, and Kanchipurna said, I am not qualified to give you initiation. And he basically sent him away. And he said that he was only a Sudra and that he wasn't learned enough to be a spiritual master of Ramanuja. And so Ramanuja felt really unhappy. He felt that he wasn't worthy that he was too impure. So he thought, what can I do to make myself more pure? So he thought, taking the remnants of the foodstuffs of a great soul will purify me enough for him to accept me as his disciple. So he wanted to get the remnants of Kanchipurna. So we have the story of Narada Muni. Narada Muni, he took the remnants of the sannyasis or sages that his mother was serving. And from those remnants, he became very elevated in his consciousness. So, and then you have prayers of people like Haridas Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, let me just please take birth as a dog or an insect in the house of a Vaishnava so that I can become purified and get their remnants somehow or other. So it says there are three substances that give the fallen soul great advancement and benedictions. And these are stated by Krishnadas Kaviraj. The dust from the feet of a devotee. The water that has washed the feet of a great devotee. The food remnants eaten by a great devotee. One can get the ultimate liberation by eating Maha Prasad. And Kaliya Krishna, who was in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, I believe, had so much faith in the purifying effects of the remnants that he found a way to take the remnants of all the devotees in the area, somehow or other. He would cheat them, give them some mangoes, and then hide in the bushes by the house, knowing that they would throw out the seeds and the skins. And then he would go and suck on the seeds and, suck on the skins to get the remnants of the Vaishnavas. So Ramanuja, he was from a Brahmin family, and he married Rajkambala, and she was from a Brahmin family. And Ramanuja devised a plan to be able to take the remnants of the foods of Kanchipurna. So he had his wife made a great feast, just wonderful things. And he invited Kanchipurna to eat. So, but Kanchipurna somehow or other understood the plan. And when Ramanuja left his house to go and get Kanchipurna, Kanchipurna went quickly to Ramanuja's house and said to Ramanuja's wife, I cannot stay. I have something pressing to do for the deities. Please, can you just pack what you're going to give me and I'll take it. So she packed it and Kanchipurna took it. And Ramanuja didn't find Kanchipurna at the temple. So he went back to his house and his wife was cooking again. And he said, I thought you finished cooking already. Where is Kanchipurna? She said, well, he had pressing business. So he came and he took his food and he left. So Ramanuja was thinking, okay, that's okay, but I still have the remnants of his food. And he said, well, why are you cooking? And she said, oh, well, you're an exalted Brahmin and he's just a Sudra. I couldn't possibly feed you the remnants of his food. So I gave it to a lady, a Chandala lady or a Sudra lady that was passing by, and I'm cooking again for you. And Ramanuja got so angry. And he got so angry at his wife, and he said, he's not just a Brahmin, or not a Brahmin or a Sudra, he's a great Vaishnava. He's much more exalted than any Brahmin. How have you misunderstood this? How have you done this? And so she became very distraught. And so he didn't get the remnants like that. So, one second. So it says, he told his wife that Kanchipurna was very dear to the Lord, and that made him more exalted. So he went and he prayed to the deity, Vardaraj, and he asked him why he would want him. Oh no, I'm sorry, my bad. After leaving the house of Ramanuja, Kanchipurna went to the deity of in the temple, and he prayed. He said, why do you want me to be a devotee, the spiritual master of this great Ramanuja? I'm not qualified. I don't want name and fame. If I become a spiritual master, I'm going to be glorified, and I don't want this. So he said, I don't want to be a spiritual master. So the deity told him that he said he wanted to leave. And so the deity said, yes, okay, go and serve me as Venkateshwar. And so Kanchipurna walked all the way and to Tirupati and took care of fanning the deity there. So as it turned out, he fanned the deity there for about 6 months, and then the deity brought him back to the same area. So then Ramanuja went to him again, and he said, without a guru, I'm having trouble understanding the scriptures. What am I to do? So Kanchipurnam, he asked him to ask the deity. Ramanuja asked Kanchipurnam to please ask the deity what he should do. How close. So the deity said that he had 6 points that he wanted Ramanuja to understand. He wanted him to understand that Krishna was the Supreme Lord, the absolute truth. From me, all material and spiritual worlds are emanating. There's no truth superior to me. The deity told Ramanuja through Kanchipurnam that to learn that the Jivatma is eternally separated part and parcel, and that he can never become one with the Lord, that he's the eternal servant of the Lord. 3, the only means of attaining true perfection in spiritual life is to surrender to the Lord unconditionally. 4, my love for my devotees is so much that even if a devotee fails to remember me at the time of death, still I will take him to my abode. 5, when my devotee gives up his body, it is my responsibility to bring him back home, back to God. 6, he said, tell Ramanuja that he should take shelter of the great disciple of Yamunacharya, Mahapurna. So that gave Ramanuja somewhere to go to get initiated. He didn't get initiated by Kanchipurna. So at the same time, it just so happens that Mahapurna was ordered by the successor of Ramanujacharya to go to Kanchipurnam and to give initiation to Ramanujacharya. So he started going towards Ramanuja. Ramanuja started going towards him. And they met on the outskirts of Kanchipurnam. These names are very similar, Kanchipurnam and Kanchipurna, unless I'm pronouncing them wrong. Okay, so at that time, Ramanuja invited Mahapurna, who was with his wife at that time, to stay with him for a year in his house, his compound, and to learn from him. He wanted to learn. So one day it just so happens that Ramanuja's wife and Mahapurnam's wife went to the same well to get water because they were in the same compound. And Mahapurna's wife was getting water, and a little of the water from her pot splashed on the pot of Ramanuja's wife, Rachikambala. And Rachikambala became very angry. You are a low-class Brahmin family, and this is a sin that your water from your pot has touched the water from my pot. My father is a great Brahmin. My husband is a great Brahmin, and you are a Sudra, and you let your water touch the water from my pot. And she went on to say that all the traditions that her father had taught her were being spoiled by Ramanuja having these lower class people in their compound. And so the wife of Mahapurna became so distraught, she just sat down and cried. And then Mahapurna saw his wife crying. He said, what's going on? And she told him. And he said, well, we should leave this place because we are causing a problem in their household. He didn't get mad. He just felt bad that the problem was caused by them being lower caste. So they didn't want to inconvenience anyone, so they left without telling anyone. And when Ramanujacharya realized that they had left, he asked his wife, what happened? And of course, she related the story, not finding fault with her, but finding fault with Mahapurna's wife. And she actually blamed Mahapurna for not being humble in the situation. So she spoke sarcastically, and Ramanuja was so despondent and disgusted that his guru was so offended that he left. So Ramanuja went to the temple and prayed. And in the meantime, a Brahmin went to the house of Ramanuja begging for alms. And Ramanuja's wife was so irate at that time. She just told the Brahmin, look, just get out of here. I don't want to see you. Instead of giving him alms. And when Ramanuja was coming back from the temple, he saw the Brahmin. He said, have you just come from my house? Did you get alms? He said, no. He said, your wife was so angry, she just sent me away. And Ramanuja said, okay. So he said, I want you to do me a favor. And he wrote a letter as if it was from his wife's father. And he told the Brahmin, he said, please take this letter to my house and tell my wife that you have come on behalf of her father with a letter for me. And so he said, and then she will treat you nicely. So he went to Ramanuja's house. He gave the wife the letter, and the letter was from her father to her husband. And so she was so elated, and she said, oh, my dear Brahman, let me take care of you. And she fed him sumptuously. And then he went on his way. And so when he went home, the wife said, oh, my dear husband, Ramanuja, here's a letter from my father. Please read it. So the letter said that, dear Ramanuja, my youngest daughter is getting married, and I need my other daughter, which was his wife, to come back and help with the arrangements. Please send her back. So she was happy. She got ready to go to her father's house to help with the arrangements. And she went on traveling to her father's house. And then Ramanuja, he went directly to the temple, and he surrendered completely to the Lord. And he said, I want to dedicate my life to you completely. And so it was decided that he would take sannyas. Kanchipurna came in at that time and performed the sannyas ceremony. And he got saffron cloth and a danda. And that was on the banks of the Ananta Sarova, which is where the pastime was spoken by Radhanath Swami. There's so many interesting pastimes of Ramanujacharya. But that is the only one I decided to talk about. So, what time is it? It's about time to stop. So, if anyone has any questions or corrections or additions or anything, please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for enlightening on beautiful class, and thank you for sharing about pastime of Ramanujacharya. Thank you so much, Mataji. Dear devotees, if anybody have any questions or realizations, please go ahead. Mataji, do you have time, Mataji?
It's 8:28. Well, it's Sunday. I have nowhere to go.
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hey, Krishna.
Thank you very much for a beautiful class and also sharing your personal realizations. I have a question regarding some of the symptoms that you mentioned, like the pure devotee syndrome. So I feel like I'm still suffering from it, and very severely. And any recommendation that you can give that so that I can remain humble and try to overcome this?
Well, it seems that we just heard the recommendations to serve the Vaishnavas, and the example of not only Ramanujacharya, but so many other devotees of serving the Vaishnavas at any opportunity, helping them even in the most menial way. Sometimes we forget becoming a great devotee means actually becoming humble, the humble servant of the servant of the servant. We may not be recognized by the mass of even the Vaishnava society. It's really not our goal. Of course, everyone would like to be that pure devotee that everyone is running after for their association, but it's really not what we should aspire for. We're trying to please Krishna. And if we go the wrong way, we end up cheating ourselves from the actual opportunity. In the Vaishnava society that we live in, we see when somebody is trying for the adoration and distinction because the atmosphere in their being and in their way of doing things is tainted. And we see when other people are actually looking for the real thing, their example and the atmosphere around them is totally attractive and pure. I had a book, which I know I have. Give me 1 second. Let me get it.
Sure.
I just saw it. There it is. Okay. This is a little book that was put together by a devotee many years ago. I don't know if you can see this. This is Mother Ladini. And she lived in New Vrindavan. And most of you probably never even heard of her. But here she is with Lord Jagannath. She took care of Lord Jagannath here. See how young she is? She was very young and she was living here. Her father was a doctor. She was from kind of a wealthy family. And at that time, can you see the pictures? I can't see. Can you see the pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. At that time, New Vrindavan was just a mud hole. This is way back when. And she very lovingly took care of Lord Jagannath for years, did all the cooking and caretaking. She treated them like Krishna Balaram, like her children. But she had a book in every corner of the temple, open. And she, after she finished doing the arti, she would turn and she would read from whatever, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, for the 10 minutes until whatever. She made the offering, then she would have time to read. And then if she was folding the clothes, she'd have another book and she would be reading. And I traveled with her one time before she went to Africa. And her books were so well read and underlined and bookmarked with little things. And she was learning so much. And she went to Africa. She became a wonderful preacher, just a wonderful, enthusiastic preacher. And she ended up going to Africa with Bhaktitirtha Swami. And the people there loved her, and she carried, there's a picture of them. She carried her Gornitai deities with her everywhere. And these were not little tiny deities. These were this big. Her Gornitai. These are her Gornitai. When she flew, she carried them with her. You know, I remember traveling with her to Washington, D.C. one time, and we were staying up in this like attic place. You couldn't stand up, and it was just, you know, we threw our sleeping bags down, and I woke up. I don't know what time I woke up, 4, 5. She had already been up. She had her deities sitting there on the floor. She was already dressing them. She had a very personal relationship with her deities, with any deity that she took care of. She was writing letters. This book has all these letters she wrote to Prabhupada, letters Prabhupada wrote back to her. She was a very exceptional devotee, but, you know, whoever heard of her probably. But I have heard both Bhaktitirtha Maharaj and Radhanath Maharaj talk about her explicitly. And both of them say there's not a day that goes by that I don't think of Hladini. They were inspired by her devotion. You know, so, but she didn't become a big leader in the society and everyone running after her. But she was a pure devotee on you know, in her devotion. So that's really what we're looking for. So we read to serve the Vaishnavas, to take remnants. She would sleep with Lord Balaram's shoe. She would sleep with the deity paraphernalia. You know, she was a humble servant of the servant. She never put herself first or forward. So we all have the same tendency, pure devotee syndrome, even though we've been around for 50 years. You know, it's just their impurities. And that's what Ramanuja felt he wanted to get rid of by taking the remnants of the food offered to the great devotees. And I mean, we get Mahaprasadam here. We find Mahaprasadam coming from different places in India. These things are valuable. But especially here, when Mahaprasadam is so common, it's often not taken for the spiritual values so much. I mean, well, I don't want to criticize anybody. I'm just saying, when it's available in excess, we need to have the right mentality. Malati told me once that Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, if he ever got Mahaprasad, would circumambulate the Mahaprasad before he would take it. You know? Anyway, we're making progress, baby steps towards some realization of spiritual life and purity. I mean, we have the directions: chant with attentive, you know, attention, serve the devotees, follow the instruction of the spiritual master. It's a gradual process, life after life, you know.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Lalitangirada Mataji is asking what is the book name, Mataji?
I think Mataji,
Was stuck.
Hare Krishna.
Her video got struck. Oh, she got dropped off, Mataji.
I just put the name of the book in the chat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. I think she will connect again. I'm not sure.
Yes, Mataji, she will connect, I guess, Mataji.
Let me call her.
Okay, Mataji.
Yeah.
You want me?
Okay, no problem, Mataji. We will end the call.
Okay, my apologies.
Yes, okay. Can you hear Mataji? Mataji, hold on.
We can hear Mataji very clearly.
So, Mataji, can you speak, in my phone, whatever you wanted to say?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, I had lost connection somehow or other. I don't know why. But yeah, so I hope that answered his question. I don't know how far we got before the connection quit, but anyway. Anyone else have anything to add or say?
Thank you, Mataji. It answers my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, very good. Can you see me?
If anyone.
We can hear you, Mataji.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, well, so everyone have a wonderful day. Do the best you can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for enlightening class, and we are very grateful to you, and we are looking for your forward to your association again in the future. Let's pay our obeisances to Mataji and all assembled devotees. Vancha kalpa tarubhesha ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, लीला प्रभात की जय, हर ग्रेस जय श्री माता जी की जय, and all assembled devotees की जय.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so much, Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your association.
Hare
Hare Krishna.